Hello, my name is Becky Tuch. I am very pleased to be here today with all of you. We are going to talk about navigating the world of literary magazines. I am the founder of LitMag News, which is a Substack newsletter, and it's dedicated to demystifying the world of literary magazines. So I've been thinking about and writing about and researching and reading literary magazines for quite some time. And I'm very pleased to be able to share what I've learned with all of you. So what we're going to cover in today's session is a lot. So I might move a little bit swiftly. Feel free at any point to stop the video, take notes, go back, sort of watch at your own pace, because depending on where you are in your LitMag submissions process, this might be a lot of information for you. So don't be shy to just, pause the video and take notes wherever you need to. We're going to talk about writing goals. We're going to talk about how you know whether your work is even ready to submit for publication, cover letters. How do you even find literary magazines? How do you find lit mags that are right for you? What are lit mag tiers? How do you assess lit mag quality? What are rejection tiers and do they matter? Contests, yay or nay. And if you're completely confused by all of this, don't worry, it will become clear as I go through each of these items. So the first thing before we get to anything is I would like to have each of you take a moment to establish your writing goals. And I would actually encourage you to pause the video and take, 2 minutes and just write down what your goals are with your writing. It may very well be that you have no idea, which is totally fine. Maybe your goal is that you just want validation for your work. You just want to see your name in print and you want to know, that there's somebody out there who appreciates it. You want to share your work with others. You want to connect with readers. Maybe you want to build your CV for grant applications, teaching gigs, fellowships, MFA programs. Maybe you want to be discovered by literary agents. Maybe you want money, all of the above, some combination of these. So just take a moment and write down for yourself what your writing goals are. They don't have to be lifelong goals. They can be just right now, where you are right now. What are your goals? And this is going to help you in deciding where you submit your work for publication. Okay, so once you've done that, the next question is, how do I know when my work is ready to send out for publication? These are some criteria. I would say that you should try to have your work vetted by at least two trusted readers. Another thing that I think it's important is that the work has cooled a little bit. So it's not fresh off your computer, fresh out of your printer, and you're sending it off, the day you wrote it. Give it some time, make sure you've read it through with clear eyes. Um, and also, you want it published because sometimes in the heat of the moment, we're excited to share our work, and then maybe an editor actually accepts it, and then we have second thoughts. So make sure that this is a piece that you want published. Obviously, the work has been spell checked, grammar checked. You'd be actually quite surprised how many writers don't do those steps. So you're already ahead of the game. If you are spell checking and grammar checking, please do that. Please number your pages and put your name on every page. Make sure the guidelines have been met. So, different magazines have different word count guidelines, different genre, different formatting. So just make sure that you're meeting guidelines because, again, a lot of writers actually don't do that. So if you are following a magazine's guidelines, then you're already ahead of the game. So the next thing is the cover letter. So what goes in a cover letter? You've probably seen on Submittable, there's a little space for this. It's very, very basic, and I will show you an example I have here. But it's just a professional greeting. It's a space to remind editors of any personal connection you have, if maybe you've met them somewhere or they've given you feedback on work before. It's a place, sometimes if you're submitting to a magazine that has a particular theme, the editors want to know how your work connects to the theme. So that's what that space can be used for. Name the work and name, if it's a prose piece, name the word count. brief bio listing past publications, or if you don't have publications, you can say, I've never been published before. This would be my first published piece. Maybe a little bit about yourself. I'm a retired nurse. I've been teaching for 20 years. I live in Alaska, and that's really it. Brief, thank you. Really, really minimal, professional, and that's it. I think a lot of writers get stressed out by the cover letter, and you shouldn't be. You can use a very, very basic template, and I will share that with you. But first, I want to say what a cover letter is not. A cover letter is not a summary of the work you are submitting. Some writers get very tripped up. They think they have to like pitch the story or pitch the poem to the editors as you might an agent in a query letter. You absolutely do not need to do that. It is also not a space to provide a long list of everything you've ever published. It's just, your top three most well-known, most reputable, most recent publications. And that's really all you need. It's not a place to be funny or a place to talk about your cats. It's not a space to act out your aggression against Lit Mag editors, and it's not a cry for help. And I include all these things because I've heard from editors that writers actually do use the cover letter for all of these things. So there's no need to do that. Just keep it professional, simple, and to the point. Here's a sample cover letter. Dear journal editors, Bumblebee journal editors, encloses my story. Here's where my writing has appeared. I appreciate your time. Thank you. That's all you need to say. A cover letter is really not going to make or break your submission. So truly do not stress out about it. I think a lot of writers worry that they're going to say the wrong thing and it's going to, unless you really do something absolutely egregious and you're offensive and you're annoying, it's not going to break your submission. So don't worry about the cover letter. It's also not going to make your submission if you're glowing and praising and your story is so wonderful and this and just keep it very simple, professional. Use this template. You can use this template with every magazine. Just make sure that you change the name of the journal that you're submitting to. And that's really it. That's it for the cover letter. So, how do you find literary magazines? This is sort of the million-dollar question. There are so many, right? Like if you use a resource like Duotrope, which is a database that lists literary magazines, you will find thousands of magazines. So how do you narrow the field down to a specific cluster of literary magazines? I like to think of it as like a cognitive map. Um, you don't need to familiarize yourself with every literary magazine that's on the market, but if you can familiarize yourself with about 25, then you will be in very good shape. So I recommend starting with classified listings, Poets and Writers Magazine, Facebook groups. There's a Facebook group called Calls for Submissions that posts a lot of calls for submissions. New Pages is another great resource. There are a lot of lists out there, Funds for Writers, Erica Varillo, Erica Dreyfus, Subclub. And all of these just do a Google search for these particular resources and they will show up. And then I prefer, when I first started out, I looked for calls for submissions because those magazines are specifically seeking writers. They have gone to the effort of trying to, announce their calls for submissions. So I think that's a great place to begin to find literary magazines. Um, Now, as for how you find the right lit mags for you, that's a little bit different. And for that, I would say talk to other writers, see where your peers are publishing. If you're in a writing workshop, take note of where people in your group are publishing their work. read announcement threads sometimes on social media. Someone will ask for like a writer's lift kind of thing where people share what they've had published recently in literary magazines. On my own Substack at Lit Mag News, I do a monthly Lit Mag brag where people share what they've had published. So these are all great places to see where others have had their work published in literary magazines. These are magazines that are actively publishing new writers, and their turnaround is relatively quick for response. So read also best of anthologies, look at the author bios, see where they're publishing. And you can start to connect the dots, and you can start to make like a kind of cognitive map for yourself. Like, okay, someone is published in Kenyon Review. What does that mean about their style, their aesthetic? They've also published in X-Ray magazine. They've also published in Georgia Review. If I like that person's work, if I feel like that person's work is sort of similar to the kind of work I do, then those would be good magazines for me to submit to. So, read lit mags, look at author bios of writers you like, see where they're publishing. You might even visit the author's websites to get more of their publishing history, and you can start to kind of piece together this map for yourself by following the trails of where these authors have published. Follow them on social media to get a feel for their vibe. You might not like social media. You can just create kind of like a dummy account and not engage with the site at all, but just follow literary magazines. You'll see announcements, calls for submissions, contests. You'll see what they're publishing, and that's a great way to get a feel for these literary magazines. Seek out editor interviews. These days, there are a lot of places that are doing editor interviews, which is great. Lit Mag News, I regularly interview journal editors. There's also Sub Club. There's a site called the Lit Mag Lounge. And then finally, trial and error, like be patient and don't be afraid to make mistakes. It's not a perfect science. You will be rejected, and that's really where it comes back to having your work vetted by those two trusted readers, because everyone gets rejected. That is par for the course. That is totally normal. Your work will be rejected. That's just the way it goes. But if you have those trusted readers that have said, this is ready, this is good, it's something to fall back on, so you don't get too discouraged and you don't start to question your own work. And you just feel like you know the work is good. It just has to land in its proper place. And then you can keep sending your work out. And again, it's not a perfect science. My very first publication was in a literary magazine. I didn't even realize at the time, but it was this magazine called Blue Line. It's still around, and its tagline is it's dedicated to the spirit of the Adirondacks. And I had no idea that that's what I just sent my work there. My work, I don't think it really had that much connection to the Adirondacks, but I sent it there and they accepted it. And I was over the moon about it. It was wonderful. It was a beautiful magazine. So sometimes, what lit mags say they want, what they actually publish, it's not such a near match, easy to predict kind of thing. So you do have to kind of throw yourself into the waters and be willing to get rejected, be willing to make mistakes. But you're learning as you go. And all that said, the more specifically you can target your work to the appropriate magazine, the higher rate of acceptance you will have. But even doing that, it's hard to do it perfectly. So don't be afraid to just get out there, start sending out your work and learning about these literary magazines and learning what they publish in the process of sending your work out. So how do you assess a magazine's tier? This is a question that comes up a lot. One thing is, so Duotrope is a great resource. It's a database for literary magazines. You can get like any information that you want. A magazine's response time, a magazine's if they offer payment, if they charge for submissions, and all the data is there on Duotrope. So that's a great place to ascertain the acceptance rate of a magazine. If a magazine has an acceptance rate of about 1% or even less, it's usually considered a top tier magazine. Erica Kraus also has you can just Google her name. She also has a list of magazines ranked by tier. I've found that a lot of the magazines are outdated. It's 500 magazines that she ranks. A lot of these magazines are closed or they're not taking submissions. So it's a little bit outdated, but it's still a useful list. Clifford Garstang's list, he lists the magazines that have had work in the Pushcart Prize anthologies over the years, and Brett DePorter's list. So again, I know I'm throwing a lot of names out, but just pause this video, take a moment, write it down, Google them. You'll find their lists and their databases, and then you can see, okay, which magazines have had work consistently appear in the Pushcart Prize anthology. That's usually a sign that it's a pretty top tier magazine. If you're looking at a magazine's website, you can ask yourself, do they nominate for prizes? Have their past contributors published in anthologies, Best of the Net, Best American Short Stories, Best American Poetry, the Pushcart Prize. Who else has published there? If you see a lot of big name writers, it's probably you're looking at, a prestigious top tier magazine. You can also use a filter, like Chill Subs has a filter. Where else are the contributors publishing? So again, you look at their bios, and if they're all publishing in Plowshares and the Paris Review and the New Yorker, then you have a sense that it's a top tier magazine. How long has it been running? Has the magazine itself won prizes? Are the founding editors big names? These are all ways to know if a magazine is a top tier journal. But here's a question, right? Do tiers actually matter? And this is where I think it's really important to establish your publication goals, because tiers might not actually matter all that much. I think one thing that trips writers up is that, especially early on, they all tend to submit to the same 5 or 10 magazines. Like everybody's submitting to the New Yorker, everybody's submitting to the Paris Review, everybody's submitting to Plowshares, and like these elite magazines, which are so competitive. And some writers, if you take a step back, might realize, why am I even why am I even braving rejection by these journals? Why am I even wasting my time with them? I don't even really care if it appears in a top tier literary magazine. I just want to share my work with readers. I just want the validation of being published. I just want to be able to share my work with an audience. So sometimes the tiers actually might not be that important. So that's why, again, it's really important to establish for yourself, what are your goals in submitting to literary magazines? What are your ultimate publication goals? So what's good about top tier magazines? Sometimes they pay. They look great on a CV, which is important if you are applying for teaching jobs or fellowships or grants or stuff like that. You do want to have, at least a few top tier magazines on your CV. It can lead to agents tracking you down, and they liked your story in this magazine and now they want to connect with you. And it can also lead to solicitations from other magazines. And of course, it's going to impress probably not your family, because they've probably never heard of these magazines, even if they are top tier magazines, but certainly other, people in your writing community will know about them. And that's always fun. They may present the work better. That's a big maybe. That's not necessarily the case. They may promote the work more. They may have a larger readership, and they may last longer. Sometimes top tier magazines are only in print, which can be an advantage if that's your preference. The disadvantage of top tier magazines is that they take so long. So when you submit to a magazine, I keep coming back to Kenyon Review for some reason, but there are many top tier magazines. When you submit to one of these more prestigious magazines, the wait time is going to be about 9 months average. Some will reply faster. I think Missouri Review, maybe 4 or 5 months. Some are certainly faster, but some take over a year. I got an acceptance at Salt Hill magazine, which I think it has a very low acceptance rate, so maybe like a 2% acceptance rate. And the acceptance came after 13 months. So, and I interviewed the editor of Harvard Review, and she said she accepted a work after 15 months. So that for some people, that is just a really much too long time to wait to get an acceptance or rejection on a piece. And they also have an acceptance rate. Their acceptance rate is so low and it just may feel discouraging. So the question to you is, why are you publishing? What are you seeking in publication? And this is something also that you might recalibrate as you're sending your work out. You might start out submitting to the top tier magazines, and then after waiting 3 months, maybe you get a rejection here and there. You decide, okay, you know what? It's not that important to me. Really, what matters is that I have a place that publishes this. It looks nice. I like it. And I can share it with my community. I can post about it on Facebook. I can share it with my readers, my family. That's really all I want, you know? So you might decide, you might aim for the top tier and then you sort of rethink that and recalibrate your strategy. And I think that's perfectly normal. I think that's what most writers do, honestly, when they're submitting, that you aim high and then you sort of adjust. Depending on what your particular goals are, you know, and you may have different goals with each story, each work. Maybe you do really want, you know, you have one piece that is you think it's the best thing you've ever written. So you do want to hold out for that one, you know, really prestigious magazine. But other work, you just want to get out there. You just want to have it read. You just want to share it. And so I think, you know, with your submitting, it's always kind of a balance between all of these things. Um, so when you're submitting, I would recommend that you submit to the top tier journals first. And by top tier, I guess in this sense, I mean the journals that you're most excited about. So submit to those magazines first, and then progress down your list as you continue to submit. Know the acceptance rate of magazines so you don't get too brokenhearted by rejection. And remember that the idea of like a dream journal is subjective. So your dream journal may not be a top tier magazine. I think that's totally cool. But you do want to make sure that all of when you are submitting, you're submitting in batches of excitement so that you're equally excited about all of the magazines that you submit to at once, because you never want to be in a position where someone offers you an acceptance and you're kind of like, oh, thanks, but actually I still am waiting to hear from this other, you know, the Paris Review. So just make sure that with every batch of submissions, you're equally excited. If any one of those came back with a yes, you'd be ready to go, because the etiquette with literary magazines, unlike with literary agents, with literary magazines, you really cannot say, do you mind waiting a day or a week because I'm still waiting to hear from somebody else? No, no, no. When a lit mag says yes, you have to be ready to say yes too. So really make sure that you're excited. Um, if you're concerned, some people don't know when you're just starting out, how do you assess the quality and the longevity of a magazine? Some of this is your gut instinct. Is the site easy to navigate, easy to read? Is it user friendly? Is it free of errors? Something for me, like a pet peeve, is if a journal has gray, really light gray font on a white screen. So many magazines do this. And it's like my pet peeve. And I won't submit to magazines that are like that, because it's not that it's a low quality magazine and it's not that it doesn't have longevity, but it's just, it's hard to read. It's hard for me to read, and I don't want to publish things that might be hard for other people to read. So just some of this in assessing a magazine's quality is going to be your own gut feeling about the site's visibility, the navigability. Does it have a unique URL? Sometimes if a magazine has like, you know, joespoems.blogspot.com, that's a sign that it may not have much longevity, because they haven't paid to have a unique URL. And a unique URL shows that the editors have invested in the magazine. Does it have a unique aesthetic? Um, is the journal a member of CLMP? When was the site last updated? The blog, these are things you can just poke around and they're pretty easy to find. If the last blog post was in 2021, that might be a question about the magazines, how active they are and their longevity. Another pet peeve, another pet peeve that I have is if there's no masthead and there's no way to contact the editors, that's a big no-no for me. There has to be a way for me to know who the people are that are reading my work. Are there a lot of ads? Is there a lot of clutter on the site? Do you like the way the work is presented there? Would you be proud to have your work there? Has the magazine already been around for a while? So these are all ways to look at the magazine's longevity. A word about submission fees. You will find that many magazines have, it's common now, especially at the top tier magazines. Average is about $3. And some people are fine with fees, some people can't afford them. Know that some magazines do offer financial waivers if you cannot afford a fee. Some people are object to submission fees purely on ethical grounds, and I think that's totally fair. In my opinion, more than $5 is too much. It's just too much, and I won't pay that. I think that's kind of bonkers. But for you, maybe that's fine. Maybe $10 is fine. Whatever you're comfortable with. If it's nothing or if it's $10, whatever, just make sure that the magazine is trustworthy. Make sure that it looks good. Make sure that the editors are communicative. Make sure that they're up to date on all their publications, and that the work is well presented. Maybe you recognize some names that have published there that they nominate for awards. So if you're going to pay, more than $5 for a submission fee, just familiarize yourself. I hear from writers all the time that they pay some like outrageous fee. I just spoke to a writer who paid $25 for an expedited submission, so she would get feedback more quickly from the magazine. And it was just a disaster. It was just start to finish, the whole process was a disaster. So if you're going to pay, I mean, always do your research, always check out the magazine, but especially if you're paying because those fees will add up. I mean, I recommend submitting in batches of 8 to 10 places at one time. And it gets easier, the more you're submitting, the easier it gets. Sometimes people hear that figure and they're very alarmed. But at the beginning, you can send your work to maybe 3 places. But as you go, all of this gets a lot easier. And you can submit easily to 8 to 10 places at once. And, those fees will add up. So just be mindful of that. Um, a lot of magazines offer contests, which I think is, it's perfectly legitimate and it's actually often a fundraising vehicle for the magazines. So what I like about contests is there's usually a clear response date. They usually tell you we will announce the winners in May, and that's something that you can kind of pin down and you're going to get a response in a few months. There's cash award, prestige, promotion. There may be other benefits, subscription to the magazine, supporting the magazine. They might even, like at a really fun magazine, they might fly you somewhere. They might host a reading. They might connect you with more established writers. So there can be all kinds of benefits to entering contests. And also the submissions are read anonymously. So that could be a big advantage because you're not competing with, big name writers. It's all, the names are removed. So the person reading has no idea whether you're an unknown or whether you're Joyce Carol Oates. And that might, could tip the scales in your favor. And some magazines, I encourage if you're submitting to contests, look for contests that publish you, even if you'll consider your work for publication, even if you don't win the contest. So there's still a chance to get into the magazine, even if you don't win the contest. The cons of contests really is that they cost money It may slow down your submission process because you maybe don't want to submit to other places while your work is tied up with contests. And again, protect your heart from rejection. I think the higher contests are higher stakes, so you could get your hopes up even more. But I think, they're fun. And if you have a budget for it and you feel like your work is strong enough, I say go for it. Um, so, final takeaways. I know I have breezed through all of this. Again, please feel free to go back, pause where you need to. Final takeaways, submitting to Lit Mags. It's fun, and the thrill of acceptance. I mean, I still, I think most writers, even no matter how long you've been submitting, the thrill of acceptance is just, it's so great. It's such a wonderful, wonderful feeling. So, it's something to savor, something to enjoy. It's a great way to share your work with readers. Don't take rejection personally. When I get a rejection, I just pretty much just delete it and that's it. And then I try to submit my work. I have like a personal policy. If I'm ready at that particular moment, I'll submit to two or three places immediately as soon as I get a rejection, just to keep things moving along. Get invested in Lit Mags, read Lit Mags, support them, go to readings, connect with the editors at conferences if you can. Another great thing, which I didn't list here, is to try to get involved as a reader for a Lit Mag. If you can, a lot of literary magazines take volunteer readers, and that is a great way to see what's coming in, to see to see the other side of the desk, to see what editors are seeing in submissions. And I've heard from so many people that that's a tremendous way to improve your own writing and improve your chances of getting published at a literary magazine. So look for opportunities to become a reader. Focus on venues that are right for you. Be diligent but patient, and really, ultimately, truly believe in your work, believe in yourself. It's an up and down. It can be a roller coaster ride, but you know, hold the faith in yourself and in your work. So that's really my overview of literary magazines. Thank you so much. Again, my Substack is Lit Mag News. I am always open to readers. You can contact me anytime with questions you have about literary magazines, about the submissions process, your own experience at Lit Mags, and I'd be happy to hear from you. So thanks so much and good luck, everyone.